The Castle of Avis is a Portuguese medieval castle in civil parish of Avis, in the municipality of the same name, in the Alentejo district of Portalegre. History. In 1211, d. Afonso II awarded the lands of Avis to the Knights of Evora under the dependency of the Order of Calatrava in the person of d. Fernão, with the condition that the knights settle the lands and erect a castle. This edict resulted in the settlement of the military order of São Bento in Avis 3 years later, and the construction of a castle and fortified walls by Master Prior d. Fernão and Master D. Fernando Rodrigues Monteiro. Immediately in April of 1214 there was an agreement between Fernão and the Bishop of Evora, D. Soeiro, over the use of the land rents in Evora and settlement of Benavente to support the construction. On the 12th of January 1215, d. Mafalda, daughter of D. Sancho I, bequeathed to the Master of Avis the settlement of Sia. By the middle of the year d. Afonso II had granted the settlers of Avis a foral similar to that established for Evora, which was confirmed in August 1218 by the king. Martim Fernandes, Master of the Order of Avis, signed a new settlement foral on the 20th of August 1223. By 1331, Gil Perez, Master of the Order, obtained a judgment against the more malfamed Frangello, who had been appointed alcalde and judge of Avis, thereby making them alcaldes of the castle. By the 15th century, the fortifications are rehabilitated by the Condestable d. Pedro. It was during this century that the construction of the keep addorsed the conventual buildings, and the painting of the same, by order of Master d. Pedro. In 1473, D. Afonso V authorized the partial demolition of the tower of the Evora Gate in order to transform it into a dovecote. Sometime during the 16th century, there were alterations made to the fortifications, while a new foral issued by King D. Manuel. By 1556, the convent record, written by George Lopes, referred to the keep being the possession of the Masters of Avis. In the 17th century, the old Porta do Arco de Bexo was concealed and a new Porta do Arco was constructed. The Agiologio Lusitano, authored by Father George Cardoso, referred to the existence of 5 towers and 6 gates. On the 19th of October 1654, Friar Ambrosio Marques requested that the castle tower addorsed to the convent be demolished, since it threatened the destruction of the building. Rubble had previously destroyed the chicken coop as it fell. By the end of the century, during the reign of King John IV, the towers in the northeast and southeast were demolished, and its materials used in the construction of 2 ravelins in the south and southwest. In 1708, Father Carvalho da Costa referred to the existence of 5 towers and 6 gates, that included the Anjo, Bexo, Evora, Santo Antonio, São Roque and Postigo. In 1730, a description by D. Francisco Xavier de Regard referred to the existence of 6 towers with their associated gates. The 1758 parochial memories, signed by Friar Gaspar Xavier Liteo, referred to a walled town, constituted by a regular square, and by 17th century, 2 forts that protected the Evora and the Santo Antonio gates. The towers were high, but in ruin since the stones were reused in the construction of the forts, making the castle a constant profile. At this time, the castle included 4 towers remained unscathed throughout this period, specifically the Keep Tower, Porta de Santo Antonio Tower, Porta de São Roque Tower and the Masters Tower. The castle was encircled by a river and cliffs, creating a natural barrier and difficult access. By the 4th of December 1892, in an article within the newspaper O Século, the castle was described as a very old tower with Gothic windows, each with its own bell. At the time of the disbanding of the religious orders in Portugal, the Order of Avis had in its possession their control of 18 villages, 49 commendations and 128 priories. As a consequence, the lands controlled by the Order of Avis, in addition to possessions and properties, were sold to individual property owners and the state. Between 1915 and 1918, the historic Keep Tower, which was adossed to the convent of São Bento de Avis, was demolished. In 1921, part of the walls alongside the lands of the monastery of Avis fell apart. On the 30th of May 1941, there was a debate to maintain the continuity between the towers, castle and hospital of the Misericordia, and that the property should not be alienated. On the 25th of November 1943, a letter from the DGEMN was published over the necessity to expropriate some of the buildings, in order to remove from the walls and towers of the castle. For many years, homes, buildings and structures were being constructed against the walls, potentially destroying the value and importance of the historical properties. Antonio Paes da Silva Marques wrote to the DGEMN, where he ridiculed the utopian ideal and pretension in reconstructing the primitive castle, since it would be necessary to demolition the entire settlement, including many of the adossed houses. On the 20th of January 1945, it was decided to survey the town and the walls, to analyze the possibility of demolishing some properties. But by the 5th of March 1947, the investigation had not been concluded, nor were there any buildings designated for demolition. Jonah Procopio issued a request on the 24th of November 1953 for intervention by the DGEMN to restore the wall destroyed during a bad storm, since it put here residents in risk of destruction. During a visit to the area in December, it was decided to consolidate the corners of the towers, which were falling apart due to water infiltration. On the 16th of June 1955, the municipal council indicated their intention to construct a tourist path over the walls, but, in 1959, the DGEMN reconstructed the walls, and many of the curtains along the Rua dos Muros were consolidated owing to the terrible state. The job was tended to Odilon Martin Garcia. A letter from João Lopes Cravitas dated the 2nd of April 1965 solicited the authorization to consolidate the walls near many of the buildings in risk, a project that was budgeted for $500 escudos. It was authorized, but with the condition that the public works would be carried through, accompanied by the DREMS. Yet these repairs were insufficient, and a letter from President of the Municipal Council noted the importance of proceeding with repairs to the walls alongside the hospital of the Santa Casa de Misericordia. On the 29th of August, the volunteer firefighters of Avis requested permission to erect a siren on the south tower of the castle. Architecture. The castle is adossed and integrated into the residential buildings at the top of a hill, dominated by a valley. This high place permitted observation across the vast landscape and visual communication with many of the local fortifications, including the castles of Alta de Chão and Pavia. The fortification is an example of medieval and transitional architecture, composed of masonry and stone, with mortar and clay limestone. the perpendicular walls and broken by rectangular towers, with bastions. Of the original 6 towers constructed during its history, only 3 remains: the Tower of São Roque, Santo Antonio, and the Queen's Tower. The primary, dominant tower, a tower keep that include 2 halls with vaulted ceilings, with sills providing illumination. These spaces were decorated in cork, had a chimney, places for flags, and 1 grated window surmounted by the coat of arms of the Avis with inscription. In reality, the 2 historic inscriptions, one on a limestone plaque, era de 1330, of 60 as de fevereiro, cum quero a fazer este castelo por mandado de mestre de Avis dom Lourenço Afonso e Lpo essa primeira pedra, M.C.C. B3, C. Castello. It was in 1330, on 6 days of February, they started to make this castle by order of the Master of Avis dom Lourenço Afonso, and he placed the first stone in M.C.C. B3, C. Castile. The second is situated on the keep tower, over the cross of the Order of Avis, era de 1336 anos at 25. Dias Andados de Fevereiro, Fezes Castelo dom Lourenço Afonso Mestre de Avis e Honra, e Servico de Dios, e de Santa Maria Sua Madre e das Ordens de Muito Nobre Senhor dom Dinas Rei de Portugal, e do Algarve, Reinante aquel tempo, e defendimento de seus reinos. Salvator Mundi Salva Me. It was in 1336, on 25 days in February. This castle was built by Dom Lourenço Afonso, Master of Avis, the honor and service to God, and to Holy Mary his mother, and gave orders to the great noble Master Dom Dinis, King of Portugal, and the Algarve, reigned in that time, and in defense of his kingdoms.